The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM. Ya hala, ya hala, ya hala, ya hala, ya hala.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to Sister Speak. This week with me, Lamisa.
Me, Amina.
And me, Mariam.
So today we are live in the studio. Our main topic is going to be on toxic friendships, but first over to Mariam for what our show's about.
So our show is a platform for Muslim girls to voice their own opinions on current events and issues, and even form discussions on general topics such as religion, culture, politics and social media. We want to note that all opinions and views are our own, and we respect all other opposing views.
Yeah. So before we delve into our main topic, we're going to start off with our thoughts for the week. So this is just a small section of our show where we just, share little pieces of information that we think may be beneficial to you guys listening. So who wants to go first?
Let me say, how about you start off?
I'm okay. Amina, how about you start off?
My thought of the week is, we kind of did a whole thing about this before, but I'm gonna, obviously it's thought of the week, so I'm still gonna mention it. Is challenging yourself. I think it's really important.
Definitely.
And for me, especially recently, challenging myself mentally. So, I think we're all so used to wanting to be validated, like wanting our emotions to be validated, when sometimes our emotions aren't always rational. Like sometimes they're completely rational, and you have every right to be feeling that way, but sometimes it's, you need to take a step back and think, okay, is this really necessary? And one thing I shared with these two earlier is that it helps to write it down. So one thing I want to start practicing again is to write down, say, the negative thought, and then challenge it, just put a little table, what is the negative thought, and then put next to it what is the reality. And I think that really helps rewire your brain and kind of ground you, and you panic less as well, because sometimes when you're feeling upset, in some situations, as funny as it sounds, it's literally a waste of time to be upset. Obviously, we all need to feel our emotions. We have a range of emotions that we have to feel, but sometimes it's like, this is really not necessary, and it's kind of holding me back. So I think it's really important to keep ourselves in check, and don't be afraid to tell yourself off.
For sure.
That's actually a very good
advice.
thought. Yeah. I think I'll spring on from your thought of the week, because like how we were talking about earlier on, when I challenge myself, it takes a lot of time to convince myself to do it, number one. And I think those irrational thoughts in your head, they really brew in your head, and they make you feel like they almost disable you from actually doing the challenge. And I feel like it's so important to take that first step towards it, even just vocalizing it. I'm going to do this specific thing that's my fear. So for me, it was my intense fear of animals. It was me holding an apple where the parrot sat on the apple. I went to a park. That for me was such a massive mark of confidence, because I did something that's completely outlandish, something that I would never imagine to do. So it's just taking those steps, and then also when you are actually taking those steps, telling yourself why you're doing these things, and telling yourself that you are capable of doing it. And somebody gave this advice: even if you're really, really scared of doing that particular thing, the first 10 seconds, just fake it. Like fake that confidence, or pretend you're stepping out of your fear, or pretending to be someone else who's confident, and do that thing. If the first 10 seconds go and you actually feel like, oh, I'm okay with this, you actually survived it, it reinforces that the reality in your head is not true. It's something that helps you to kind of, what's the opposite of rationalizing?
Irrationalize?
Yeah, I guess it kind of like, it helps you to kind of take those thoughts in your head, and it brings it to service.
Oh, okay.
And I think that, especially for people who do suffer from anxiety, people like me, I think it's just taking that first step towards it. And I'm not saying that you'll be successful the first time you start. it's a struggle, and it's something that you have to keep being persistent. But there's so much positivity in helping your own growth, in facing yourself, facing the own things that inhibit you from succeeding or make you feel really low. I think it's really important. I think also having a support network to push you towards those things, because when you have people around you, and today we're going to be discussing toxic friendships, which is the opposite end of the spectrum, but when you have positive friends who encourage you, and even it might seem insignificant to other people, but if you have friends to support you and they know that this is such a big thing to you, they'll help you through it. And I think it's really important to evaluate yourself and also evaluate the people you have around you and ensure that they are feeding you with positivity as well.
Definitely. I think both very important messages that, everyone can take on board. I guess with my thought of the week, I think more and more recently I'm sort of realising that, like say if we're all together in our dining room, this is my family, and we're sort of talking and we're laughing and we're joking, I'm sort of more and more coming to realise that these are the more important moments in life. And I guess I just wanted to say that, these are the things that truly matter, not being swamped down with work or, I'm sure we all have very important things going on in our lives that we work towards and we strive towards and dedicate a lot of time. But it's those small moments where you're having fun or, even just conversing with someone that you're on the same wavelength with. That those type of small moments, I think they're what's really sort of important in life, I guess. And it's kind of why, we have this long journey. Like the other day, when I was on holiday, I was on the plane, and the person that was sitting next to me randomly started a conversation with me, and we were talking throughout the flight, and I thought that was really, it's nice. You wouldn't usually talk to a random stranger, but in that sense, you get to find out about how different people live, and this person was from Sweden. So this person was from Sweden, and they were telling me about their life in Sweden and that type of thing, and I just thought it was very interesting that, these small moments are what really, I guess, sort of nourishes your life in a way and makes it a bit different. So yeah, if you have those opportunities, sort of grab onto it. Don't talk to every random person, but if you're there with someone, you could strike up a conversation, maybe do it and see what that other person is about, I guess. But yeah, that concludes our thoughts for the week. If you guys have any thoughts for the week that you want to add, don't hesitate to contact us. You can text or WhatsApp in on
you can text or WhatsApp in on 07779 481822. You can also call on 01582 481822, and we are on Facebook Live, so feel free to comment, just join the discussion.
Yeah, we'd love to hear what you guys think. And also, do you want to shout out our Instagram?
Yeah, our Instagram is @SistersSpeak.
Yep.
Pretty simple. Follow us on Instagram. You can DM us on there. There's a lot of ways that you can get involved in this show.
And we also have podcasts on iTunes and Spotify. We
do. So our show can be a podcast for you to enjoy and download whenever you want to listen to it. And we also do separate podcasts as well, talking about a lot of random different things. So yeah, please do download and share it. But yeah, so we're going to move on to our hot topics now. So the first hot topic is, we'll start it off with the back to school. So this week is going back to school week. How do you guys feel?
It's kind of giving me that reaffirmation that I have to go back to uni in 2 weeks, and seeing everyone getting prepared and getting back into routine. It's a kind of a massive reminder that I need to kind of, I think when you're in uni and you have those 6 months off, well, I've only had 4 weeks off, and I feel like I've lost control of myself because I've been working for a whole year, alhamdulillah. So I only had 4 weeks off for my annual leave. But for me, it's like the transition from, I think I mentioned that before in the other show, the transition from working to studying again. It's going to be a challenge. But as we discussed, we just have to take the first step and kind of figure out. I think one thing is when you have fear or when you're doing something new, you expect to see results straight away, and that's where that fear comes from. But if you allow yourself to have time, then things kind of pan out anyways. You just have to allow yourself to have that leeway.
I agree. Do you think at this time of year, because obviously we're all university students, does it make you does it make you reminisce a bit about when we used to go back to school? About those days? It doesn't?
No, I think for me it kind of does, because I've got younger siblings.
Yeah.
And they're like getting their new backpacks and pencil cases. And I did used to dread going back to school, but that side of it, like getting into a fresh uniform and having like fresh new pencils and everything, that was so exciting.
Yeah.
That reminds me, I'm to buy a pen for uni.
Just the one. No, my sister yesterday, she was packing a bag and she was like, so basically last year I had a green pencil case, so I had a matching green pencil, and this year I have a purple pencil case, so my theme's going to be purple. And I was like, wow, she put a lot of thought into it, and she was like, this is my purple pencil and I've got a purple rubber and everything. I was like, wow, this is so, once you're at uni, Mariam's right, all you need is one pen and you'll get through it.
It's so important for them to have a new pencil case.
Definitely.
My mum suggested that. My little sister just swapped their pencil cases, but they were like, no, I need a new one. No, I just find it so funny. But I feel like it's the reason why it's exciting is because it's like a new beginning and you get to start.
That's true. It's like those little stationery is like denoting that this is the fresh start of new year, and they're also going up a year as well. That's a massive change for them. So they're also growing in that sense as well.
Especially, I feel like those who are going into year 6, because my sister's going into year 6, and they do SATs at that time of year. But I feel like they put a lot of pressure on the kids now. I don't know if it's just the feeling I'm getting. But when I went into year 6, I knew it was SATs, like we had SATs, but it wasn't too much of a worry. I think it was just that it is scary, but it's happening. My sister's like, I have to do well, I have to try hard, all of this type of stuff.
But do you think it's because, when we were younger, we had a more, I'm not saying your sister's not innocent, but I think we had more innocence. We were quite more, I think we didn't understand the stress and worry the way young people understand stress and worry now, because it's so prevalent and within homes, and even if it's not within home, they just have a better, and they're more sharp and they understand more things quicker than we did back at that time. And also the pace is faster with everything
definitely.
else. So obviously even their maturity will be quicker than ours, and soon they will lose their innocence quickly than we did.
Or also it could be the fact that, when I was younger, I didn't have any older siblings. Because I'm the oldest.
That plays a part.
So obviously I didn't see anyone stressing about exams. I didn't see... She
That's
sees
also
me,
true.
You come home and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. And that type of thing. So she must think, to herself, like, I have to do well as well, that type of thing. Maybe she's putting that pressure on herself.
That's true. That's
she's seen it.
Yeah. But then I didn't have that stress, and I'm the youngest sibling as well.
But then my brother, who's 2 years younger than me, I don't know, I guess it's because our age gap isn't that big. That we sort of went through it at a similar time, whereas we're quite a lot older than her, so she's probably sort of had that example. I don't know. Strange.
But we'll make dua for her little sister. Inshallah she'll be fine.
Make dua that she does well.
She'll do well.
Not that it's that big of a deal. I literally tell her all the time, I'm like, it doesn't matter. She's like, it does.
It matters to her. I think also understanding like why is this stress rooting her, and so long as it doesn't come to an unhealthy point, I think it's okay to have some sort of understanding this is important. I think it's kind of separating is significant to it's stressful. I think those are two things that we kind of have to separate, especially for young people, because they don't need that extra unnecessary pressure.
Yeah,
I think making them understand what SATs is just indicates what level you are in high school. That's all it is. It's not, you're not applying for university. It's not actual.
It's not your make or break, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's actually just a test of your caliber, really.
I think that's important.
I also wanted to ask you guys, because my cousin she just finished her GCSEs and she's going to sixth form, but she doesn't know anyone there. I wanted to ask for your advice, because she was asking me like how I making new friends, and I told her, I feel like at sixth form everyone matures a bit more than you would at going into a high school as a new kid.
Yeah,
it's different. I think you just make friends organically.
I think so as well. I think you don't really force that upon yourself. Even I think it's the same concept at university. I think you kind of make two separate groups of friends. I think you make friends that are on your course, and then you have friends that, or they could have the same interests as you, or you can have, and then you have your friends that actually have the same interests, and you want to go out with them, or you want to like even study with them, even if they're not in the same course. And I think one thing that helped me was going to the prayer room. So one of the sixth forms here, the main sixth forms here, has a prayer room. So I met a lot of girls there, and I made friends on my course. But to be honest, sixth form is a sixth form is almost the same as high school, because it's almost full. It's full time, and you practically be there 4 days a week. So you see these people all the time, but the only difference is sometimes you might go home at 3 o'clock, or sometimes you might go home at 12 o'clock. That's the only difference. But then that time is given for you to study in the study centres. So there's also that.
Don't abuse that time.
Don't abuse. Keep yourself up to routine, because that independent study is such a good habit to develop before university. Just because you have a free slot, don't underestimate it as a free slot.
And not only that, just use it to study for your A-levels, because if there's anything I learned, I remember in my last year of sixth form, like in my school, you're not actually you're not allowed to go home early. It's not like that. It's just if you happen to have a free period last, then I guess you could go home early. But, on days when sometimes I had only 3 or 4 lessons, I'd be like, I'm not going in today. But don't have that type of attitude, I guess, because it doesn't play out well in the long run. Definitely use all the time for studying to study and not for anything else.
They're trying to prepare you for uni. Giving you that
extra time,
and
definitely.
I think sixth forms do extra sessions, so if you don't understand something really utilise that.
Definitely.
Really
because
utilise.
You don't get that level of help at university, so use it as much.
And
but in terms of it's fine.
No, so and also it's a good habit to seek help, because when you're in university, anything that you want, you have to ask for it. So if you kind of use your sixth form experience, and developing independent habits now, it will really help you transition well and smoothly to university.
That relationship with your teachers.
Will
help you just
for even your UCAS or when you apply for university, and even if you don't get the results that you anticipate for in the long run, and you might think 2 years is really short period, but it's very quick. Even that teacher giving you a good reference when you're talking to the lecturers at university, they will see that this teacher is actually very passionate about this student. The student's actually very good at what they do, but it just didn't measure well in the exam, and that can lead to an opportunity.
Definitely. And I think about in terms of making friends in a new place, just kind of be yourself really, and talk to as many people, because you don't want to talk to just one person and that's my friend and that's it. You want to talk to as many people as you can to get to know as many people as you can. I think part of sort of growing up in a way, not that I'm like fully grown up, but growing up in a way.
Of growing up, so we can talk about it.
Yeah. So part of growing up is more so you don't just hang out with your group or your friends. You need to be able to get along with everyone.
100%.
Right. And I think that's where you get those experiences when you're new to a place.
Yeah. You learn a lot.
Also being in certain lessons all the time, you're gonna obviously I remember there were always these icebreaker activities which are just a bore, but at the same time you get to know everyone.
They are good in a way. They do their job.
It gets it's a bit of a drag when you do the same one for
3 lessons.
But it helps because then you can approach whoever is their name now.
Yeah.
And you kind of get to say something about yourself. I really hate icebreakers.
For me, it's usually I'm from Luton.
But just
how did that work?
Making friends, it just comes organically.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're never going to see these people. You're in class together all the time. And
that's
usually when you're in class, you have to discuss things. I guess it depends on what subjects you take, but you're always told okay, discuss this, and then
you do talk to them on a regular basis as well.
Exactly. So if for anyone who is starting somewhere new, even if you're worried about making friends at university or just getting to know people, it's not a big thing to worry about. I think because in some situations everyone is kind of even if you're going to sixth form. I mean, when I went, I wasn't in the same classes as any of my friends because they all did sciences, so I kind of had to make friends anyway.
Yeah.
So plus it's just something everyone has to do.
Everyone's in the same boat as you.
You have new people in sixth form as well, because I'm pretty sure from not everyone in Luton goes to the same school. There's quite a few, so everyone sort of accumulates. I can imagine. I didn't go to sixth form, but that must be what it's like. I know in my sixth form when new people came in, because most of the people that had been there, we'd been there since year 7. So when people came in year 12, you know, you don't really...
You kind of just get into the swing of things.
Yeah,
you just have to like go. You have to go to your classes, and then you just have to start doing
you have to talk
homework
to,
and
exactly,
everything, and it just
and you talk
happens.
to people that way as well. And I'd say the biggest thing is, during class, make your friends. Not obviously, don't spend the whole class talking, but I feel like that's the best time.
But also, you know, you kind of something I told my cousin is that you kind of I don't know if you guys can say the same, but some of your best friends, when you first met them, you kind of knew like, oh my god, that's my best friend. Do you know what I mean? You kind of feel like that connection.
Especially one of my uni friends, like when I started talking to her, I was like, could you imagine if, you know, a few months down the line, like we were talking about a movie that we both really enjoy. I was like, could you imagine a few months down the line, you know, we'd be hanging out and all this type of stuff. She's one of my housemates for next year now. I'm moving in with her.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of just know.
Yeah.
Trust your instincts. And I think also the energy that you put out, you kind of attract that. So go with your instincts.
But also, I feel like if you feel straight away, obviously our topic is toxic friendships. If you feel like someone isn't, like you get that feeling from them straight away that perhaps they're not on the same wavelength as you, or maybe they see things differently. I feel like we're very hesitant.
Feel obliged to hang
to
out
stay with them. Yeah, I feel like we're very hesitant to sort of do what needs to be done in terms of. I don't want to say getting rid of people.
Go away.
So dodgy.
Let's just rephrase that. Redirecting ourselves.
Yeah, in terms of sort of not feeling obliged to.
Yeah, I mean,
maintain unnecessary relationships.
I mean, if you're in the same class, you do your work, and then you don't have to hang out afterwards, because I'm sure they will have other friends too.
Of course, you don't have to. All that doesn't mean be rude to them or in any way, you know, stop all forms of contact, but just, you know, slowly moving yourself away from someone because they don't. Because I feel like if you continue to talk to them when you know that they don't,
it kind of takes energy out of you.
It takes energy out of you, but it could also lead to conflict, right? Yeah, and it could also lead to conflict, and that's not what we want.
That's not what university is for. I think everyone's quite mature in that sense. You kind of know what energies you want.
That's what I was talking about to a lot of people in uni, is the fact that everyone knows by that point, like we've all been through school and making friends at school and sixth form, all of that type of stuff. Like, you know the type of people you get along with, and you know the type of people you don't prefer.
Yeah,
but I think also
gets into their groups.
I think it's quite easy to, you know what people you want to hang out with, but also you have the opportunity to explore as well. So find out, you know, what kind of energies, because you know the friends that I have now, my best friends, if someone told me I'd be best friends with these type of people because I was so introvert and I have a very extrovert friend, that would be unimaginable for me. So it's also kind of going with the flow, because you do I think when you go to university, changes like this, it's just a massive catalyst. You change so much, and even your perspective, the way you behave, and even your confidence just, I think, intrinsically just grows. Because
you're basically on your own, right? And everyone else is also on their own. So when you go there, like when you go to your freshers fair, I know freshers are going to start probably soon, actually.
I think next week.
Towards the end, yeah. You realise that everyone is just in the same boat. Everyone's trying to make friends. Everyone's by themselves, and you know you'll get along. You start making jokes, blah blah blah, and it's just nice. Like, you talk to so many different people. Some of them you may never talk to again, and you might just be in that awkward limbo where you see them in the corridor. You're like, I talked to you at freshers, but I'm not going to talk to you now. But I mean, you know, other people you're going to stick with for probably the rest of your degree. So it's a good time, I feel.
I made a lot of friends in the library, to be honest. And I made a lot of friends in the prayer room. Those two places are is where
I feel like the prayer room, definitely. Loads of people talk and make friends there.
Yeah, join societies. That's quite a good place. Like they like-minded people. But
I guess it's also not just about meeting like-minded people. I guess university is a lot more about meeting loads of different people.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think that's the best thing about university.
Even within societies, I feel like you think you're with like-minded people, but it's like you do meet very different people.
Yeah, like for example, I ran a society that was poetry society, but I had barely any humanities students. I had the main people who were studying physics, who were the best poets, the most entertaining poets,
cool.
Right? So it's like I think university breaks all the sort of like stereotypes that you might have towards something.
Yeah. Cool. So
Don't worry, you'll make friends. That's advice.
definitely.
Yeah.
Because you have, this is sixth form, right? Your cousin is going into,
And also, one thing I would say that, I hope no one is listening from my sixth form group. In sixth form is very short. It's a very short period of time. So it's only 2 years, and then you probably will go in your own way. Don't be afraid to just make friends just for those 2 years. And I'm not saying, no, obviously be respectful, have a good time, study together, but it doesn't mean you have to maintain that all the way through.
That's true. And I think sometimes you just grow out of friendship.
Yeah, I think that's...
We might be able to touch on that too during our main topic. But, if you make some really close friends, then that's great. But also sometimes, like even at work, like you have work friends, but you never hang out with them outside of work, you know?
For sure.
That's just the case with certain situations, which is fine.
But yeah, I feel like we sort of merged into our main topic, which we will continue after the break. So yeah, please do listen after the break, inshallah, and we'll see you then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You're listening to an Inspire FM podcast, making available our popular programs from our daily broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome back to Sister Speak. So before the break we had our sort of hot topics and we discussed that, and we kind of moved into our main topic. So we are going to be talking about toxic friendships. What is a toxic friendship?
A friendship that is not serving you, or in better words, I mean we have relationships. Essentially our relationships serve us in some way, but if you're in a so-called friendship where you're walking away, like you're going home every time you're with that person and you feel worse, or they're not treating you right, then that's a toxic friendship.
Yeah, I also think toxic, adding on to Amina, I think toxic friendships are when you feel that they're draining you rather than them fulfilling you. It's been a long day. So I feel like when a person, it could be that a person was a really good friend to you and they were very positive and they helped you and they supported you and may have, boosted your confidence. But if you soon see that, that's shifting and they're doing things that are hurting you and they don't even acknowledge it. When you tell someone that they've hurt you, you don't decide how hurt they are. I think that's a thing.
That's a good rule.
I think even if you literally you think that you've done nothing, it doesn't break you to say sorry, or it doesn't, you can evaluate yourself and kind of maybe think that these things are actually affecting the person, so I shouldn't do that. If a person says, when you talk to me like this, I feel hurt because I don't like it. And if you decide saying no, there's nothing wrong with that, I think that's what leads to toxicness, because you are sticking to your own stance and not being considerate to another person, and also if you're thriving off them as well, I think that's toxic as well. So they have positive energy, they do everything for you, they unconditionally support you, but all you do is call them names, undermine them, laugh at them, and it could be just masked as a very casual joke, or it could be in conversation, which is very very normal. It's a very normal conversation, but it's just those inserts of those comments that come up, and you can't pin them down, because when you kind of isolate that or separate that, it sounds kind of like ridiculous, but in conversation you know what they mean, and that undermines you,
it hurt,
and that it hurts you. And also another thing I feel like with toxic friendship is that people could be treating all these other people in such a brilliant way, and they can have such a great reputation of treating them very well, and then they treat you in one way, and it could kind of go in your head thinking, wait, what? Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm being irrational. But that's actually what narcissists do. I think that's something that we kind of have to, because there's this phrase called gaslighting. I don't know if you guys know what that means. So gaslighting is like when you undermine someone, when you be toxic with them, when you have narcissistic traits. So you treat the whole world in one perception. You have one image, but then you treat only one person, in a very damaging way. So if they say anything against you, it will be like that's completely outlandish. It's like if I was toxic to Amina, but the rest of the world I'm so kind and positive and helpful and supportive. no one will really believe Amina, and I think, and even Amina could just think, wait, maybe it's me.
It
and that
conditions the person that you're victimizing.
Yeah, it's the conditions the person to that you're victimizing, and also they might say phrases like, "Oh, you're completely crazy," "Why are you thinking too much of this?" And they'll shut you down as well. You'll notice that these are the traits, and if you research narcissistic traits, you'll see that these are the traits of narcissists, because they could seem completely normal to you, and you could have a long-lasting existing friendship with them, but then things can become sour, and you can see that they're suddenly becoming more damaging towards you than healing. Maybe they served in great purpose beforehand to you, but then now all they do is drain you. And like what Amina was saying, if you're with them and then you move away and then they hurt you and you feel drained, that's not a healthy friendship at all. And especially I think it's really important that when you have those kind of friendships, it's okay to distance yourself from them, and you don't owe them anything. You don't owe an explanation to them, and they might think, oh, she's just crazy, that's why she's moving away, and they might feel entitled, and they may behave even a bit more positive to you, and that reels you back in, like, okay, maybe it was just a phase. But the behavior repeats over and over and again, and I think you have to kind of take a stand and don't allow them to have the access to you again, because if you keep digging yourself deep into these toxic kind of friendships, it really damages you in a very negative way. And I think we had a comment from our Sister Speaks message. I think later on the show we'll discuss it. It can affect your mental health in a very in a really bad way.
Definitely.
And I think people talk about toxic friendships, and I think that it can start off as a healthy relationship. I think that's how it kind of goes. I don't know how you guys perceive it.
I think, in terms of we label it a toxic friendship, but I think the toxic part about it becomes toxic when you drag it on. And I think, every single friendship and every single relationship, you're obviously not going to always get along throughout your whole, even 100%. Some of the best friends, you could have had some of the worst fights, that type of thing. But I think it's when that sort of negativity, I guess, festers for a long amount of time. That's when it becomes toxic, and when it affects you as a person, when it's impacting you negatively, that's when you need to realize that, it's not good for me. I think it's that word toxic is quite loaded. We just sort of throw it about as a label, but the point of the matter is that it's, what is toxicity? Something that is damaging to yourself. Yeah, and I think that's the whole point.
I think one really important thing that Mariam mentioned is that when, like you said, you're not going to get along with everyone. Like, even literally every single person we have in our lives, they're not in our heads. So some people will upset us. It doesn't matter who they are. But the important thing is that when they've upset you, they take accountability for it. So if you've told someone that they've hurt you in some way, or they said something hurtful, and they tell you that you're just being dramatic, or stop being so emotional, or
instead
words
of taking
like that,
responsibility for
reactions like that will show you that this isn't good for you, and maybe that person needs to grow up. Yeah, because we're all growing and learning. I mean, some people are a bit less self-aware than others, so they might think, wow, you're being dramatic, and they probably need to take some time and actually learn that they have to, treat people better. And when someone says you've upset them, then you have to take responsibility and maybe learn that, okay, next time I won't be like that, because I value this friendship.
I think
it's okay. At the same time, like I said, they need to grow up and learn, but that by no means does that mean you should be their friend and wait for them to be a better person, because it's not serving you and it's hurting you. You don't need to stay there.
And I also think that it's quite funny, because those type of people will say to you that you need to grow up because you're being dramatic. But really, a healthy relationship is based on healthy communication. We're starting this dialogue, and there's a quote that I read yesterday: avoiding conflict is creating conflict. I think a lot of people think maturity is kind of abandoning the conversation and not letting it to pan out. But actually, if you want to do conflict resolution, you have to talk it out. And I think, obviously I'm not saying about fighting every single battle, choose your battles, but when it comes to emotional feelings and things that actually affect you, I think it's worth talking about. Especially,
so how do you think a person can realise when perhaps they're being the toxic one?
I think a person can realise is when there's an outcome of it. If someone's saying to you, like, or they, even if they don't have the courage to say to you that, you're hurting me, have self-evaluation. And even sometimes, even your best friends, they can be toxic. They shouldn't be toxic, but sometimes you can go through a very negative phase and you may behave like a toxic person. And I think if you have that trust between yourselves, then, that person will be like, I think you're going through a negative part, and I think these things are going to spiral out of control. Maybe I want to help you, hone it back in. And I think, having that self-awareness, because it's emotional intelligence to have self-awareness, having that self-awareness and knowing that, sometimes I can go through something and it can make me reactive, but that's not me, and I don't want to repeat that behavior. And I'll take the accountability of what I've done, and I'll do my best not to repeat it. And if I happen to make that mistake, then I will do anything to resolve that or kind of reduce the damage in any way, shape or form. Right? So I think it's really important that people have that emotional intelligence and be self-aware that I'm capable of being toxic, you're capable of being toxic, but let's sit down and talk about what affects me, what affects you, what things I shouldn't push your buttons in, what things that matter to you. Having just a simple conversation can resolve a lot of it. But for people that try to put it underneath the carpet and say, there's no need to talk about this, it's immature, that you keep talking about the same. Instead, if someone's constantly talking about the same thing over and over again, it means that you had the lack of ability to communicate with them in the first place. They're trying to spark with that conversation. They're trying to mitigate this. They're trying to end it, but you're not allowing it to kind of materialize, surface, and end because you're just putting it under the carpet. It doesn't resolve anything if you just kind of let it just pan out.
Not just in friendships as well, just in any type of relationship and problems in general. I think you should try and resolve them as soon as possible. I have a friend who I met in year 7, I think it was, and we're still friends now. We both go to different universities, different paths of life, but we're like best friends. And I think the only reason why that is because of the fact that whenever she says something that I feel has gone too far, or perhaps, I didn't like it, I'll tell her straight away. And whenever I say something perhaps that she hasn't liked, she'll tell me straight away. And that way we talk and we can be mature about it in the sense that I'm very sorry, I didn't mean to affect you like that, or, that type of thing where you talk out your problems, and that way you can just forget about it in the future and continue with your friendship. And I think, a lot of what Mariam discussed is basically toxic friendships happen as a result of you not being able to talk properly about what's going on between two of you. Sorry, give me a second.
I just want to add
go ahead.
That like you asked how can you tell if you're being a toxic person or having certain like toxic traits or being hurtful. I think it's just having emotional intelligence. Like you need to ask yourself if you're being hurtful. I mean, one of the biggest parts of being a Muslim is having good character. Definitely. And obviously we're used to joking around and teasing like our friends and stuff. Sometimes that's just what you do. But sometimes if you're you just know if you've taken it a bit too far. And I think people who refuse to believe that they've hurt you, I think that they know what they're doing, and that it's kind of a way to control someone, and you need to be dealing with the right people, because we're all gonna hurt people, but the thing that matters is that we take accountability for it, and we take responsibility, we apologize, we change. The difference is that some people just do what they want and they won't do anything about it because maybe they like the power. I don't know.
Yeah, I think
some people are like that.
Yeah.
But I think we had a message from one of our
on Instagram, we did get a message. Someone wanted to share their experience that they had with a toxic friendship. And there's a lot of points that she made that could maybe help some people identify a toxic friendship. And she said that she was friends with this person for quite a long time, and at the beginning of their friendship, because she was quite a timid person, I guess her friend was the one who took control, and she did whatever her friend wanted, and she didn't realise that this was a bad thing because she wasn't so confident.
But I guess if you realise that in your friendship, you're not really in a friendship.
Yeah.
Because what do we classify as the aspects of friendship? It's a sort of, I wouldn't say give and take, but more so on a level where you want to do stuff for the other person wants to do stuff for you.
Exactly.
You're on that
when
level.
you're not getting anything back. I mean, the experience she had that she described, she didn't gain anything from this friendship, because when we think about our friends, they make us happy, and when we need advice, we go to them, and when they need advice, we give it to them. But she just said that this friend of hers wanted her to be around all the time, and she was her yes man. So she'd like do whatever her friend wanted. Like, say for example, she wanted to go out somewhere, and her parents may not have liked that, she would go with her anyway. And I'm guessing she was quite young when this happened, so that's just like, unfortunately, that's what she did. And she would call her names. She said she then I think she said she went to university. It's a kind of a long message, but basically she made new friends, and she started to, when you make new friends, you realize like, oh wait, this isn't a great friendship. So I guess she realized that there's more. She started to become more open-minded, and
I guess she also changed as a person. Yeah,
she changed as a person. I guess she started to grow, and I think what she mentioned was that her friend didn't really like that she was becoming more of her own person.
Wow.
Do you think fundamentally perhaps what causes some of these toxic friendships, or perhaps even just disagreements between two people, is the fact that one person may eventually change and become a different person?
I think that, and I think either they'll change for the worse or they'll change for the better. And I think also another aspect of it is that one person perhaps is overbearing. They give way too much to another person to the point it's unhealthy. I think, as Namisa had mentioned before, anything in excess isn't healthy, and it can turn destructive. So, a lot of people become entitled when someone gives you a lot. And then when you start to see that it's draining you and they're not giving anything back, and you have this conversation, you think, wait, what just happened here? Why do I feel so drained? So I think it's also understanding that you can outgrow friendships. To be honest, I think we're just a bit too hesitant in having these conversations, and even if you try to have these conversations and it's not being acknowledged, or there's no outcome of it, I think it's just moving away slowly. And you'll see, if you're feeling better by distancing yourself, that means you were in a very toxic climate. I think you need to kind of recognize that, and don't keep justifying or giving excuses. You have to take the onus on yourself and move yourself away from that situation. And they might perhaps see that you're moving away and start treating you in a positive way, but it won't last, because a toxic person can't be consistent in that sense. They leech on you, and they're just negative, and it'll flat out eventually. So it's just prioritize your own mental health, prioritize your own happiness, and I'm not saying that if someone suddenly becomes toxic, you just end it all. No, try to, if you value the friendship, have conflict resolution, communicate it, talk about it, and if nothing's going in the direction that is healthy, then you take those steps.
Because that was going to be my next question, because you're saying that they may start being nicer to you, but perhaps don't. That might just be another, you might fall into that same loop again. But does that mean that you can't really make a toxic friendship healthy again? Or
I think it's identifying a toxic person.
Yeah.
Because if you Mary mentioned a lot of traits of a narcissist, someone who doesn't want to resolve the conflict. Their idea of resolving a conflict is ignoring it and expecting you to ignore it too. So if that is one thing that we all have to realize is that you can't change people, especially when they're a friend. I mean, when someone's not your family, it's hard in the moment to acknowledge this, but it's actually so easy to not have them in your life. Like you owe nothing to them. And if they're just a person who is giving you grief, then you don't have to be there. You don't need to be their friend. And if they, they could have like emotional blackmail, like, oh, what am I going to do without you? But we also are our own people. Like, we all have to take care of ourselves. Like, if anyone falls into something like that, where someone tells them like, oh my God, I can't do this without you. Well, you can. Like, we all have to. And especially if that person is not giving you anything back, or is trying to convince you that they have given you something. But you know what? If it affects your mental health, it's really not good for you. Also, the person who shared their story with us said that from the beginning, her mum wasn't fond of this girl at all. And
so do you think parents have a sort of intuition? Yeah,
her advice. Well, wait, let me just read it out actually, because she said, one thing I would suggest to people is, my mum wasn't fond of her, rightly so. If your parents have a bad feeling about a certain friend of yours, definitely take that into consideration. They have this special sixth sense. So do you think, would you be able to relate to that?
100%. I think also when you have, for me personally, I always talk about my friends to my parents, both my parents, especially my mum, and so she kind of evaluates them in that sense. So I tell them that kind of conversations. Obviously, I don't disclose what we talk personally, but I sort of talk about what they like, their interests, or how they react to things. And I think because parents have their own understood experience, they are able to give advice, and they've seen patterns, and they've met so many people across their livelihood. And I think those type of people, they're able to pick out, and especially because of course they're your parents, they have that sixth sense. They want to protect you. So I think Allah gave that to them. And
also they've seen you grow up. They know how they know how you react to certain things. Definitely. In some ways they know what is good for you. And especially because this is your family, they're the people that you, for most people, not everyone, but for most people, your family is the people that get on with you the best. So they know the kind of people that will also get on with you, and they'll know, like, I don't know, it's always the case when your mum doesn't like someone, then you don't need to be around them. That's not to say you should hate them or whatever, but you don't want to. If someone has given you, if someone that cares for you, it doesn't just have to be your mum, it could be anyone that really cares for you and is looking out for you, and they tell you that this certain person may not be good for you, I think you should take that advice on, and maybe not entertain that friendship or relationship or whatever it is, because you don't want to find yourself getting upset or exhausted by this person. And also the girl who DM'd us, she did mention that when she did eventually distance herself from this girl, she did keep trying to pursue her and keep trying to text her and basically harassing her. And it's just, you don't want to get to that point. I think at some points in your life you do realise, I guess when you get older you realise the kind of people that you want to be around. We mentioned that when we talked about going to university. So you never want to get to a point where someone is giving you unnecessary unnecessary grief.
I think that's very important.
What advice would you guys give? Sorry, Louisa.
No, it's fine.
What advice would you guys give from about outgrowing friendships? What things can you do to help ease that situation? Because it's really hard, especially if you had a long-lasting friendship with a person.
I think if you're growing as a person and that person really is your friend, then they would accept that. I know we talked a lot about, taking, if you're not receiving anything from the friendship. But I guess it's a bit of a, I don't know, to me it seems like a bit of a sad way to look at a friendship where it's just you should be receiving stuff, and you should be like, it almost seems transactional. But
I think it's building together. It's building
it is,
together.
Definitely. And I feel like if you're in a friendship, you want to give. Because you genuinely like that person, you enjoy spending time with that person, you enjoy talking to that person, that type of thing. So I think if you as a person are finding out that you're growing and you're changing and you're developing, who are our friends? Our friends are people who would be genuinely happy for us, that perhaps we see things in a different light, or people who we can very easily discuss things and discuss our personal issues with, and our personal, I guess, revelations in that sense, that type of thing. So I think if they're a true friend, then of course they would be happy for you, and in that sense also perhaps take that growth with you. They'd be like, my friend told me this, so that's probably a good way to look at it. But like we're discussing, toxic friendships and toxic people, perhaps they're not like that, and maybe that's when you need to think twice about that friendship, I guess.
I completely agree with you. And I think that it's just having that self-awareness. I think a lot of issues can be resolved by your own self-awareness. So if you know yourself well enough, then anyone that tries to kind of portray you as the person that is creating the toxicness, then you will able to separate yourself, because a lot of time the narcissist or the toxic person will try to victimize themselves and portray you as the person that's creating the conflict.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
so
I was just gonna
go ahead.
I think when you distance yourself from someone like this, it's important to always keep in mind that you don't owe anything to them, and you come first over everyone. Like your mental well-being will always come first. You need to realize that no one deserves to suffer, no one deserves to be in a bad place, and you need to keep yourself happy. And if this person isn't serving you, then what's the point?
Yeah,
because you're just draining yourself by giving everything to them, and you're not getting anything back.
So the main point is that you can distance yourself if you need to. But yeah, thank you very much for listening, and that's the end of the show. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. Why not tune in to our live stream at inspirefm.org and follow and subscribe to our social media platforms at Inspire FM Luton.